Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, which is part of the Whole Care Network. If this is your first time listening, welcome. This is a show produced bi-weekly to help family caregivers integrate self-care and caregiving into their lives. Each episode has an accompanying show notes page, so if you'd like more details about the topics, products, and resources we speak about, you'll find the show notes by going on the website, happyhealthycaregiver.com, and underneath the podcast menu, click the image for today's show. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, you can also find the show notes link in the episode description. Do you know about WCN University? It's a digital course library for family caregivers. My first course is available called 6 Steps to Infusing Self-Care in Your Caregiving Life. There are also a ton of other courses in a variety of different topics. Search and select for what is most helpful to you right now as a family caregiver. Learn more at WCNUniversity.com. For today's segment of what I'm reading, I finished reading a book called Jacqueline in Paris by Anne Ma, and she's actually an American food and travel writer. The author started this as a travel article, retracing Jackie Kennedy, our former First Lady's study year abroad, but she quickly realized that it needed to be more, that it turned into a full novel. Paris, and really France, is one of my favorite countries that I have visited, and I look forward to visiting it again. And actually, as I'm recording this, my daughter is visiting a friend in France right now. My maternal side has French roots, and a fun fact about me is that I minored in French at Penn State University, but never really used it a whole lot. I'm fascinated by the culture, the art, and I enjoy reading books that take place in France. This particular historical fiction book chronicles First Lady Jackie Bouvier Kennedy Onassis's experiences when she studied abroad in post-war Paris for a year to immerse herself in the language and culture. I'm an admirer of this American icon who goes by Jacqueline in this novel, but didn't even know that she had this experience. Evidently, Jackie referred to this year as her most carefree and high point of her life. For her, it was transformative. There are secrets, love, and learnings from a young, privileged woman overseas. I gave the book 3.5 stars. I rounded it up to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, and I will link to it in the show notes. My favorite thing this week is something that could be used to meal prep and transport healthy snacks and items to and from the office. So they are Debbie Meyer green boxes, and they don't look very special. They're like green Tupperware, essentially. But for some reason, this magic Tupperware-ish kind of box keeps your fruits, your vegetables, your bread, your baked goods a lot more, it stays fresh a lot longer. It's BPA free, microwave dishwasher safe, made in the USA. I was skeptical, but it was a holiday gift from Jason's aunt last year, and I thought it was kind of unique and unusual gift. She raved about them being her favorite thing because she lives alone and it takes forever to go through, the packaging that we get from the grocery store. So when I get home from my grocery store, I dump, like, let's say a container of blueberries into these green boxes, and they are fresh for a month. I don't understand it. They look, like I said, other containers that I've had before, except they're green and they just keep things fresher. And for $30, I'm definitely saying this is one of my favorite things right now. It's got 4.5 stars on Amazon, 10,000 reviews. So evidently we're not alone in thinking this is one of our favorite things. So I'm going to link to these Debbie Meyer green boxes in the show notes page. Before we get into our show today, I want to first shine the light on our episode sponsor, Rare Patient Voice. Do you want to earn cash in exchange for your opinion? Rare Patient Voice, or RPV, helps connect researchers with patients and family caregivers for over 700 diseases and conditions. For patients and caregivers, RPV provides the opportunity to voice their opinions to improve medical products and services while earning cash rewards. Rare Patient Voice, helping patients and caregivers share their voices. If you are interested in joining the RPV panel, then go to rarepatientvoice.com/Happy Healthy Caregiver. So let's dive into today's topic. I thought it was fitting to publish this particular episode, a solo episode with me, sharing about some of the experiences I've had as a working caregiver and what companies can do to support working caregivers. And it's fitting to publish this in November, which is National Family Caregivers Month. And this year's theme is, their hashtag is Caregivers Connect. It's a great theme, since on this show, we are about creating a connective community of family caregivers and connecting, or as I like to say, fast tracking you, the family caregivers, to help and support you need, you crave, or maybe you don't even know about it. Obviously, I have a relentless passion to see and help family caregivers. When I started Happy Healthy Caregiver in 2015, I had a clear mission of providing support and resources for family caregivers, and I wanted to do this full time. However, I also needed an income, and frankly, I didn't have any business starting a business while caregiving for older adults and for helping to raise kids and working my job full time. But this was just something I was called and just felt continually called to do. But I needed an income, and I worked on Happy Healthy Caregiver while working full time in my IT job and being a sandwich generation caregiver, some of the most toughest years of my life. And as I said, I had no business starting a business. I had felt and was feeling isolated, alone, overwhelmed, unhealthy. My poor face was just covered in acne. I was gaining weight. Would just cry on the drop of a pin. And I was drowning as a sandwich generation working caregiver. And yet I felt like, and I have this sign actually in my office that says, change nothing and nothing changes. And that was because, I worked in a lot of transformative things when I worked in IT and in my strategy role. But the same thing applies here in this caregiving space. If we change nothing, then nothing changes. So I struggled with how to monetize Happy Healthy Caregiver. And I always wanted people who could afford my services, like organizations and companies, to pay for the support on the family caregiver's behalf. I recognize that you already pay a lot out of pocket. That doesn't mean I don't charge you for anything. I do charge for, my coaching services beyond the complimentary session. I charge for my books and some of my other products. But in general, how I was going to make my living, I wanted someone else to pay me for that and pay for the support on a family caregiver's behalf. Caregivers are already paying and doing way too much. So I monetize my business in two ways. I'm just being fully transparent here. Is in one way, I'm what I have called myself an accidental influencer, which means that I provide digital content. It could be, through freelance writing. It could be through ads on the podcast or in the newsletter, partnerships with companies that I like and respect, who could offer a product or services that I feel like family caregivers could need or want, or maybe could have helped me at one point in my life. And so people pay me to introduce their product or service to you. And I'm also like an Amazon.com influencer. So when I share the links on this podcast, you could, if you go in and purchase that, I get a slight little thank you from Amazon for that. And if you add other things into your cart, even better, some of those dollars goes towards Happy Healthy Caregiver to offset my expenses. The second way I monetize is as a professional speaker. And I'm passionate about talking about self-care and caregiving, and self-care not being what we in the media really portrays as self-care, as like eating right, working out, maybe even getting great sleep. But this all-encompassing part of self-care, the social self-care that we need, the professional, the intellectual, the financial, the spiritual, the practical, and of course, the physical. I get hired by faith communities, nonprofits, and employers to share my story and hope that it resonates with the audience. And then to fast track the audience or their members or employees to resources that I wish I knew about. I want to validate your experiences in the audience as family caregivers, and I want to let them know that support is available and where they can find it. So I share this because in today's episode, it's primarily coming from a presentation that I prepared for a group called SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resources Managers or Professionals. And it was particularly done in Atlanta. And the attendees at this conference were primarily those who work in HR. Now, I have a threefold purpose that I'm going to share with you today. And I'm actually going to see if I can share my screen here. I know some of you choose to watch the podcast on YouTube. It's a little awkward for me kind of talking to myself and so forth, but I want to just give you all the options to listen, to read the transcript, which we've added to the show notes page, or to watch the podcast on YouTube videos. Before we kind of dive into the show today, though, I want to first, we always kick off things with pulling some words of wisdom from the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. And, this is a jar that I created. I collected these things that spoke to me over the years and then created this jar for my sister when we transitioned care from me to my mom. So this is a good fitting quote for today. It says, "Don't focus on how far you have to go. Focus on how far you've come." Sometimes we just move on to the next thing, right? It's like, oh my gosh, and I'm guilty of this too. I'm a producer. I like to get stuff done. And that benefited me, frankly, in my work career, and it benefits me as an entrepreneur in my business. But yet we do have to kind of look back and say, oh my gosh, look how far that we have come. Even as I'm recording this, I'm getting ready to celebrate this 6-year anniversary of podcasting. And I can't believe it. It's been 6 years almost of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast in November. As I remember, I kicked it off in National Family Caregivers Month. And I'm grateful for Chris McClellan of the Whole Care Network, which my podcast is a part of that whole umbrella of amazing podcasts under Whole Care Network. And, he convinced me to kind of give it a try. And so I get to kind of dust off my broadcast journalism skills and do the podcast. And I've met some amazing family caregivers along the way, because I really do feel that family caregivers are the genuine experts in family caregiving. So I say all that because it's 6-year anniversary of the podcast. I'm delighted that things have finally kind of started to turn the corner, and that in 2023, as the time of recording this, I'm just shy of 50,000 downloads just in this year alone on this podcast. So it is resonating with people, and I have you all to thank for that. I'm grateful for your ratings. I'm grateful for your reviews. I'm grateful when I post something on social media about the podcast and it resonates with you and you share it with your community, because caregivers are everywhere. And maybe they need to know about the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. So I appreciate you all sharing that. And the jar is, I no longer make the jars for you, like in the mason jar, but you can buy the PDF of the inserts. You can, the original inserts of over 150 quotes and sayings is out there. And then I did a refill of the inserts, because when I would go see my sister, when she was caring for mom in Michigan, I would fill up her jar when I was visiting with new things that I have come across. And now I have even more quotes. I probably need to do another refill. But I'm hoping that those of you listening, yes, this will resonate with you potentially as a working family caregiver, what I'm going to share in this episode. But my real hope is that you take it one step further and you share it with somebody in a position of leadership within a company or organization that can influence, change, and put programs and support in places for caregivers within a company or within any type of organization. So with that, we're going to switch over. You're looking at my notes, if you're watching the video, of what what I've shared at this conference. And so we're going to talk about, that there is a growing crisis for family caregivers. And I want, in particular, employers to understand how they can help their family caregivers and how it's very doable. It's doable. You can even start with the things that you already have, and then you can start layering it like a yummy little cake, and putting other services and support out there. And then we're going to talk about the specific ways that employers in particular can address the 4 common caregiving pain points within their organization. I love this quote though, and I think we should all just kind of sit here for a second, because this is a big issue. And I had just talked to the, president of SHRM Atlanta recently. In fact, I'm getting ready to do another webinar with them, because this is one of their top concerns about supporting the needs of family caregivers. And fellow Georgian and former First Lady said it best, Rosalind Carter, with there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So been, are, will be, or will need, like, we are not going to escape caregiving. It is, if it hasn't already impacted a person's life yet, the odds are that it will. We're living longer. We have more technology and medicine than ever before. And there's a huge gap, and family caregivers are filling that gap. There's not enough people to care for the people who need the care. And the family caregivers are the one that are taking that on. So this is what caregiving in the US looks like. And these stats are from 2020, and they're from AARP and the NAC, caregiving in the US. So this is pre-COVID even, these analytics. So these numbers have already likely increased and will probably increase even more. I understand that every day 10,000 baby boomers are turning age 65. So we have, a growing thing that's happened, or a silver tsunami, or whatever you want to tagline it. And I want to talk about that there's 53 million family caregivers in the US. That's a lot of caregivers, and that's just in the US. That's 21% of the population. No wonder we're exhausted, or you're exhausted, because it's equivalent of a part-time job, just the average. Now, there are many at-home caregivers. There are people who do this 24/7, but on average, they're working 23.7 hours per week, which is the equivalent of a full part-time job. 61% are female, but the male caregivers are continuing to rise. And I also want to say that family caregivers are younger than we think that they are. Almost half of family caregivers in the US are under the age of 50 years old. And the young caregiver, young carer is a growing segment of our population. People who are helping with their grandparents or helping with their parents. Maybe they were disabled veterans and so forth. So younger than we think. And many of them, in fact, almost a quarter of them, are caring for more than one person at the same time. And here are some of the pain points that caregivers have. So this is, most people want to age in place as they become older adults. We're living longer. Our hospitals they don't want them to come back, and they're relying on family caregivers to not have that re-entry. But our healthcare system is super fragmented, and it takes a lot of time to find the help and the support that's very limited. And so employers can help fast track these resources to family caregivers and really play a big role in that. So the 4 main pain points are the need for emotional support. 40% of family caregivers have clinically significant symptoms of depression. I know I was there. I had to ramp up. I already had general anxiety, and I had to ramp up my prescription for depression during the peak of my caregiving years, and was grieving my father. That's twice the rate of the general population, by the way. And 23% said that caregiving made their health worse. I can attest to that for sure, until I kind of, figured out that I needed to prioritize my own health and happiness, or I was going to potentially repeat the same cycle for my kids. The other second pain point is caregivers need training and education. I'm hoping what we're doing here about story sharing and sharing caregiving and self-care tips on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, and what I'm offering through the digital course and social tips that I'm a part of that training and education. But they also need training and education about how to care for their care recipients and how to keep them safe at home. And the things that I did and that you are doing, like, we never thought in a million years we would be these nurses, these counselors, these grief counselors, these transporters, these meal cookers. Like, we're doing all of these different things. The third pain point is that caregivers need organization and coordination. There's just a lot of moving pieces. As I said, everything is fragmented. And someone said to me today, we're starting this group, a chapter of adult children of aging parents, ACAP, they call it. We're starting a chapter in my county, Cobb, and actually the neighboring county, Cherokee, and outside Atlanta. And we have programming that we're going to start up in 2024. And I'm part of the leadership team that's deciding which programs we're going to put on every month to help with that training and education. And, one of the fellow leaders said to me after today, said, wow, we have 12 months of programming, and this isn't even just cutting, the tip of the iceberg. Maybe we should do more sessions. And I thought, well, we can't do more sessions. We're going to overwhelm caregivers as it is, if we were to do that. But there's so much information to fill through. And so we're constantly trying to kind of balance and juggle all of these different things. And we need the help. This is our pain point. We need someone to help and some tools that can help us with organization and coordination. And I'm delighted to see that there's some technology and age tech and health tech that's really helping to bridge that gap. 61% work in addition to caregiving, and 26% have difficulty coordinating care. Like, things happen, right? Like, there's a shortage in professional caregivers right now. They cancel on you. Family members maybe aren't showing up the way that we want them to sometimes. We also need, care for our pets and our kids. Like, there's just a lot to coordinate. And then the fourth pain point is the financial support, that 45% have had at least one financial strain. I know one of the aha moments for many of the clients that I coach is that, what do you mean Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care? They don't. They'll pay for some short-term rehab and hospital stays, but you're really, limited as far as the financial support that you get with either, Veterans Affairs potentially, or long-term care insurance, or Medicaid, if you qualify for the state Medicaid programs, but a lot of it is through private pay. So why do we need employers to care? I've said that this was a big focus area for the SHRM Atlanta, and I think SHRM overall, I know that they had said that it was a huge thing. Particularly, I think it got a lot of attention during the pandemic, because life doesn't stop during the work hours. And, even the Caring Company report from the Harvard Business School found that more than 80% of employees with caregiving responsibilities admitted that caregiving affected their productivity. So we need employers to care, because they hopefully will care about their employees, support this growing workforce in need, and they want to retain and attract the talent. I know for me, like, I was a top performer when I worked in my company, and then caregiving happened. And, maybe even me, not as a not so great top performer during those times, hopefully was still somebody that they wanted to retain and attract, because it is expensive to replace people and to attract good people to come. So 61% of family caregivers in the US are working. So that's increasing their stressful life events. 80% of them claim an impact, which means that they're absent from work, or maybe they're at work, but they're not completely present. And the interesting thought there that I saw was that through these stats that I collected through Harvard Business School and through the Society of Human Resources, is that employers only thought it was less than 25% impact. And the employees are saying that are caregiving 80% impact. The average cost for an employer for each employee to kind of replace them is $5,600 per year. So it's, that's a lot of money that adds up when you have to keep, finding people, not to mention all the people who are then having to train this new person, and kind of get them up to speed. The average caregiver is a caregiver for 4.5 years. And the chronic health conditions, the longevity is increasing. And another stat is that 10% of caregivers thought about quitting, and then 60% worry whether to quit. And that's where I was. I wanted to quit. I, thought about it so many times, like how I just wanted some more flexibility to be around for my family, but it just was not an option. But some people have no other option and have to quit. So most caregivers don't self-identify. They just think they're a son, a daughter, a spouse, or friend, or somebody who's caring for it. And the problem with not self-identifying, and this is where sharing this podcast to even someone who's caring can really make a huge impact, is that they don't self-identify, they don't find the support and resources to help them, and then they burn out. And then they're another unhealthy person out there in the world, and that helps nobody. That doesn't help the employer, that doesn't help the care recipient, the other members of the family, themselves. And so, employers can use their expertise to educate them and help family caregivers see the value in accepting this role. Family caregivers are everywhere. But if you're someone who's trying to listen to this and kind of understand family caregivers, they are a member of their family or the origin of family choice. That's what a family is. But then there's your family, right? Your friends and your family. Some people call family caregivers carers. Care partners is another word. But a caregiver is a person who tends to the needs or concerns of a person with a short or a long-term limitations due to illness, injury, or disability. And it can look differently for different people. It could be transporting them to appointments, purchasing or organizing medications, monitoring their health, advocating on their behalf, researching all the different things that they could do to help improve someone's health, helping them transfer, meaning move around within a space, or help them with their personal hygiene and care, doing shopping, managing finances, preparing meals. It goes on and on and on. And until you name it, it's difficult to find the support and resources you need. So we want employers to see themselves as part of the care team. And, one of my roles as a care coach is I want people to expand their care team so that they can get more help. Immediate family is just one source of help, but their faith community, their neighbors, their care recipients' neighbors if they don't live together, community volunteers, professionals, friends of your parents, extended family. And your care recipient is also a member of the care team. There's many things that they can do for themselves to help with their physical and their occupational therapy, their recreational therapy, all of that. And professionals and employers can play a big role in that as well. So quitting is not necessarily the right answer, right? It might be a Band-Aid for now, but future financial issues are just going to be magnified for this family caregiver and their family. And, there's a lot of different things that employers can do to help support family caregivers. Some of the ways that they can do that is low cost, medium, and high cost. So let's walk through that. So low cost, the first thing I could say for making caregivers visible, what could you do at a low cost? Well, you could verbalize the value, maybe have somebody that's in a leadership position talking openly about their caregiving situation. A medium cost might be to survey your workforce to really understand how many people within your workplace are working and caregiving. And then let's talk about internal support. So what could you do? Well, low cost thing is you could train your leaders to be supportive. And what that could potentially look like is not scheduling early and late meetings or lunchtime meetings. The caregivers are relying on these times to get people situated, to make phone calls, to coordinate care, to do those types of things. A medium cost for that internal support could be to allow them to network with other family caregivers within their organization. And that might look like something like a employee resource group, sometimes called an affinity group, or an employee network or business resource group. And I have a great post that I'm going to share in the show notes about how your company can set up an ERG in your organization. It's a great way to provide support for people. And by the way, if you're looking for content for your ERG, sign up for the newsletter. You can forward on some content that way, or hire me as a speaker to come and do a webinar or an in-person event for your organization. A higher cost for internal support would be to educate those employees with caregiving seminars. So like I said, hiring me to come and speak, that's going to be an investment that you're going to make. I know for me, I allow employers to record it so that they can save it and use it internally so that future employee caregivers can benefit from that content. Another way that we can help, employers can help working family caregivers, is by offering care and respite at a low cost, just listing the options, fast tracking them to the resources in the area. And sometimes I think even their employees assistance program might offer these types of options, but they may not even know about it. A medium cost thing could be to negotiate an employer rate so that they get a discount on getting more childcare or more adult care, for an adult day program even. So there's negotiating some employer rates for those things. And then at a higher cost than the employee would be to subsidize it and to help them pay for those care and respite that they are looking for. Another way to provide the respite for caregivers is just like, a getaway, offer them a getaway, a retreat of some sort so that they can connect and kind of, catch their breath and learn from other people and kind of have this lifeline of support. And I work with a company called Brutally Beautiful that offers these turnkey retreats for caregivers, and I'm a guide for them. And so that's something that could definitely be of help. Another topic is about flexibility, and flexibility could look like job sharing. It could look like part-time work or flex hours. But like a low cost thing could potentially be the flex hours, or maybe remote work days, or a few remote work days. I think we've proven one of the silver linings during the pandemic is that remote work can be effective. And it is a benefit to caregivers. It's, saving them time and traffic and allowing them to kind of have more control about when the work gets done. So I think the flexibility is key. Medium cost would be offering some kind of unpaid leave, like some kind of Family Medical Leave Act, or some type of leave. I know that there was one company I'd heard about that researched all the 50 states. And for some reason, they said the state of Washington, they felt like had the best the leave policy. And so they adopted that leave policy for all of their employees because a lot of the FMLA rules vary by state. At a high cost would be that paid leave, offering paid leave or taking what you have maybe as your leave policy in your employee handbooks and really expanding it to include caregiving situations. Another topic that employers can use to help working family caregivers is to help with employee wellness. So what could that look like? Well, at a low cost, that could be unpaid self-care resources. So maybe you have an outdoor dining area, a garden trail, a gym, a chiropractor, a masseuse that comes in, or offering some types of healthy meals and snack options there. Those might help with low cost ways. And maybe some medium cost ways might be to negotiate employer rates for healthy meals to be delivered or cooked for, and those types of things, or gym memberships to help promote their employee wellness. High cost could be a paid self-care resources and those employee retreats that I talked about, and really thinking about how you can not only give your employees a break, but how you can arm them with tools and resources so that they can make this journey sustainable, which is a win-win for everybody. And then another way through is through your employee benefits. So you can, a low cost ways is just to socialize what you already have. Like I know for me, I didn't know that I could use, my PTO, my personal time off, to help care for my mom until I went in and I saw it in the employee handbook. And I had to educate my boss about it and say, no, I can use my PTO to help relieve my sister and care for my mom. I promise you, this is not a vacation. And then there's, a high cost way might be providing focused caregiving benefits. And there are some platforms out there that you can use to augment and support your family caregivers. And if you need help, starting your ERG and getting that going, I'm happy to be a consultant for you to help share what that could look like. So, one of the things that worry is inevitable, right? Like mindfulness, meditation, we can reframe it, but it's going to creep up on it. So we want to address this. And when I became a certified caregiving consultant in 2016, I wanted to help myself while I was helping others. And as a coach, we use these wheels, and in this case, the worry wheel, to find out what's really bothering our employees and our family caregivers. So these are types of tools that we can use to have these conversations. And we want to feed our worry with action. Action is really the antidote for worry. Peace of mind from worrying comes with action. Dr. Henry Link said that we generate fears while we sit, we overcome them by action. And employers can help fast track working family caregivers to actionable steps. And so I'm going to be suggesting some actions that you can take for these most 4 common steps. And I don't want to should on anyone. I'm just going to lay out the options, and you can, pick what makes sense for your organization. So one of your worries for your family caregivers might be that their emotional and physical health is deteriorating. I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know if I can do this anymore, I'm not myself anymore, I'm angry, resentful. And they get that, because it's kind of like the boiling the frog analogy, right? Where if you were to jump into boiling water, you would completely jump out because the water is boiling hot. But for a caregiver, it can be like a slow boil. They don't know that they're burning out until they look one day and they say, who is this person I'm looking at in the mirror? So one of the actions you could take is to schedule regular breaks. Encourage employees to take their paid leave, identify the respite services in your county, coordinate relief from support caregivers, and share the self-care options that you have. And even an overnight work trip could be a respite opportunity. Be mindful if your caregiving employee wants to go back to the hotel and order dinner in and watch HGTV, and maybe just hold the judgment on that and say, oh, this poor person, this is probably allowing them to get a breath of air. And the founder of Daughterhood, which is an organization that I'm a part of that helps offer virtual support to family caregivers through multiple events a month. So Ann Tomlinson said that a break is better than a breakdown. Another action about this, the health deteriorating, is that we can do hard things, but we don't have to do them all alone. So how do you address this worry is by finding the right people to talk to, finding caregiving specific coaches like myself, or a grief coach, or some, a talk therapist, whatever you need. Local support groups. Maybe it's an ACAP chapter, Adult Children of Aging Parents. Maybe it's an organization through one of the other nonprofits in your area chapters. Some disease or condition specific organizations. Could be your faith community. Sometimes your area agencies on aging may offer support for caregivers. And then I think the employee resource groups that I spoke about, those affinity groups, can really be a wonderful spot to kind of meet people where they are. They're already working together, finding them the places to talk to. And the best resources, I believe, come from other family caregivers that are in the same local community, because they're going to fast track them to those local resources. And that's where those ERGs can be really powerful. Another worry number 2 is, will I make the right decisions? I'm afraid of doing something wrong. And so what this worry is really talking about is the need for that second pain point I was talking about, a training and education. Many of us as caregivers were never formally trained in healthcare or social worker field. We're just figuring it out as we go, drowning in the deep end, treading water into the fire. And there's decision-making fatigue that comes with that. There's second guessing. And I do like to say that we do make the best decisions with the information we have at the time, but let's get into some other actions that we can take. So professionals can help you with your decision-making. Take counsel with them. My dad used to say that he didn't necessarily know more, he just lived longer. And he, taught me about, taking advice from other people. And one of the first professionals that I often recommend that people seek out is an elder law attorney. And I don't think you're ever really too young to seek one out. They do this every day. They know the local resources that are available. They know how to maximize your resources. They'll often give you a complimentary consultation at least, but they're well connected and they're going to get all that important paperwork set up, which is a real peace of mind tactic. Primary doctors are also great resources when you need to talk to someone and you need someone to be that unliked person. So someone to kind of pull aside and say, how can you help me? I'm worried about this person driving. They're not taking their meds, there's safety concerns. A primary care doctor can really be a great person to really take that kind of role on. Aging life care experts. I'm part of an organization called Certified Senior Advisors. It's another certification that I have. There's a whole directory online. I think it's csa.us to find that. We'll link to that in the show notes. And, there's the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. There's financial planners. There's Medicaid and Medicare consultants. And, there's folks who can tell you about, again, the hospice and palliative care. They provide comfort, but just knowing that that's out there and knowing what's available. I've been through the hospice with several different people in my family. And, one of the myths and things that I see is that people don't take advantage of hospice soon enough. And so we'll link to the Barbara Carnes episode so you can learn about, more about hospice. But my mom was on hospice for 2 years and it was a big support for our family in many different ways, financially and extra hands. Another action you can do, so that, to kind of, I'm worried about making these decisions, is to gain clarity on your care recipients or your loved one's wishes. And I'm going to link to the Conversation Project and the 5 Wishes document on Amazon, which serves as a legal advance directive in many states. But these are things that help you have those courageous conversations about, what your loved one wants to be true. What does living well look like for them? And understanding that, so that when you get to this end of life time phase in a caregiving journey, that you have some information that you're armed with and that you can be present with that person. And doing this sooner, there's a lot of cognitive things that happen out there. So you want to kind of get this information while people can talk about it and be open about it. And it's probably likely not a one and done conversation, but a continuing conversation. And then another way you can kind of, be informed is by listening to caregiving podcasts like Happy Healthy Caregiver. There's other ones within the Whole Care Network, like Daughterhood and Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. There's disability podcasts like Loma. There's so many different things you can search in your podcast app for a certain topic and get the information to come up that way. Another action you can take is to educate and learn, get trained by watching videos, reputable videos. Your hospital discharge or your doctor's office might give you instructions and then you fear that you missed the steps or you didn't get it all. So this is a way to kind of go back, maybe looking at some reputable sources on YouTube, or if you want to understand as a caregiver what it could potentially be like to be a person living with dementia. There are virtual dementia tours that an employer could hire in to explain to those folks who are caring for someone with a cognitive disorder what that is like. And there are platforms and online libraries with courses for caregivers like WCN University. I love this quote by Brett Lewis that says, "Doctors diagnose, nurses heal, and caregivers make sense of it all." You are the nucleus to everything that is happening. And with your loved one's care, and yet at the same time, you deserve to live your life and live a happy and healthy life. The third worry is to address the pain point around the need for care coordination is I am doing everything myself. I don't even know where to find or ask for help. Again, many of us were never formally trained in healthcare or social worker, and we're just figuring it out as we go. So one of the actions you can take here is that for this particular worry of doing everything yourself is to request more hands-on help. There are apps that help with care coordination. There's one of them that I'm working with is Connected Caregiver. I've also worked with the Circle of team. There's Iona Care. There's a lot of different caregiving apps out there that you can take advantage of and put your requests out there. They help you coordinate appointments and events. They'll do medication reminders. You can share updates and do video chats and share important documents, vitals tracking and safety monitoring. So many different things that technology can help us work with. And I think employers can help fast track caregivers to these resources, these apps. And even doing something kind of a little bit more old school by just keeping a list in your phone of the ways that people can help. So fast tracking to resources is another action. So offering things like referrals and provider lists, amplifying your existing benefit offerings, bringing people in to talk about specific caregiving and self-care webinars and panels and integrating your employees in those events. Where we're talking about not necessarily balancing, which I think is a myth, but how you integrate self-care, work, and caregiving. How do you manage family dynamics? How do you prepare for a caregiving crisis? And those are some of the topics that I share with different employers. Getting organized, blocking out time as a primary caregiver on your work calendar so that you have some breathing room in your day. And having one place, one paper or digital calendar and binders for these important documents, like streamlining things. A digital password vault can be a great app to use. And then having things set up automatically so that you have some systems in place, like automatic bill pay and bank alerts and so forth. And then legal and financial paperwork, having your powers of attorney and all of that stuff together. And just by making that call and appointment to elder law care attorney is like step number one there. But there is some practical self-care, I think, about just getting everything organized and getting our arms around everything. And I think that, we do that already, right? In many of our work roles, we are managing so many different projects. And if we kind of also look at caregiving as another huge project, and that we can't only be single threaded on, that we have to have a whole team of people. And by having this information in systems in organized places, we're able to kind of pull more people into that care team and share the load and share the care. Our last worry number 4 is, will there be enough money? And this is a tough one because I wish there were better resources around there. This is around the pain point of financial support. Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care, and Medicaid varies by state. And in some states has a very long wait list, and you have to reapply over and over again. It can be an arduous process to be admitted into Medicaid program. And long-term care insurance is expensive. So just making a case for why working caregivers still need to work, because it's costly. Care is costly. And many of us choose, in some cases, to leave as caregivers or change careers or to minimize our hours. And we are then sacrificing future retirement benefits and overall earnings that we need as families to live. So workplaces can offer the ideas that I mentioned earlier to build a culture of acceptance and guide toward resources or offer additional financial benefits for their family caregivers. One way is to teach them about saving money, right? So maybe there's employer negotiated deals where you can help them save money on some of these big categories. There's apps that can help compare prescriptions and see how you can get the best deal on that. Buying in bulk and subscribing in saves or different co-ops. using coupon codes and cashback online, or using your FSA and HSA, and educating people about what kinds of products and things that they might be purchasing that are eligible to come out of their flexible spending account or their health savings account, or to deduct on their taxes. And then understanding the options. There's a lot of education that's needed around Medicaid and Medicare in particular, and meeting with professionals to review their portfolio and to make things stretch and work for as long as they can. And talking to, maybe you offer some conversations to professionals through your employer assistance program, but your caregiver might not even know about this program. So again, it's just advertising and making people aware about the benefits that are already available in your organization. And of course, I want to stay connected and be a part of your care team, your employer's care team. I've got the daily self-care journal, where journaling was a big part of my healing and helped me process what caregiving looked like. And this is a prompted journal that people can try on, and they can see if journaling is making them feel happier and healthier. There's a podcast. This Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast has over 170 episodes. And what makes this podcast different is that I believe that family caregivers are the experts in caregiving. And while the people on the show might have done other amazing things or developed products or are offering different services, they all have a personal caregiving story. And that's what you'll find, in the different podcast episodes. And on my site, happyhealthycaregiver.com, when you go there, you'll see, you want to connect with your community. And so you might want to connect with fellow male caregivers, dementia caregivers, young caregivers, sandwich generation caregivers, and so forth. And so I've kind of organized that so that you can fast track to those blog posts and those podcast episodes and those products and services that would be for your caregiving segment or caregiving community. And then also just self-care. Maybe you're struggling with social self-care or financial self-care. And so I'm fast tracking you to those resources on the Happy Healthy Caregiver website. I have a Facebook group that I administer as a certified caregiving consultant, and with 2 other certified caregiving consultants, where we put the focus on self-care for family caregivers. And we put content out there so that we say, we see you, you're not alone. I do a newsletter. And if you're not on the newsletter, I hope that you join it. We'll link to that in the show notes page. And maybe there's resources that you could pass on within your organization to your employees who are caring, and to join yourself. Every week I share something happy, I share something healthy, and I share something caregiving related. I'm doing videos and sharing tips on social media channels. As I mentioned, I host a support group here in the Atlanta area, but I'm also part of daughterhood.com, or daughterhood.org rather, and we offer virtual support circles. It's either led by me or one of my other fellow amazing leaders who can help either have a topic that we talk about or a general connection circle. And then I offer a complimentary coaching session. So if you want to see what it's like to work with me and just to kind of connect, we can set up some time for that. And maybe that's something that we can bundle and do at scale for your employees. And that's basically it for today. I just really wanted to take this opportunity for National Family Caregivers Month to really say, how can we change this? How can we change the situation that's happening out there for family caregivers? And, we've been at this a while. And I kind of feel like, there's people like way, up at the top in government organizations that are trying to figure them out. Maybe they're kind of talking to each other. And then there's people kind of at my level or fellow carepreneurs, people in the care economy who are hustling to try to make change. And there's this gap. And I think that employers can help fill this gap, and other organizations can help fill this gap, so that we don't end up being so fragmented in the caregiver support world too, that we can come together with a common purpose and really unite to help the 53 million plus caregivers in the United States. And with that, we're going to wrap up the show. So I will, link to all of this in the show notes page. You know where you can reach out to me. I'm at happyhealthycaregiver.com. You can find me just about on every social channel. And I just want to stay connected and help you and understand you and just know that I see you. So thanks for tuning in today. If you're an employer and you want to reach out for more information on how we can work together, see my contact page on happyhealthycaregiver.com. Reach out on LinkedIn and let's schedule some time to connect to see how I can help you meet your strategic goals of supporting the caregivers in your work environment.